one way or another. We have 15 or 20 minutes to talk about Casey's vision about the way that sport is changing, about the world of sports and entertainment coming together, and more importantly, the way that those changes impact on basketball and consequently impact on the lives of all of you in the room today. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Casey Wasserman. Hi there, please take this. It's great. So if you take this one here, that's good. Great. Great. Casey, listen, thank you for being here today. I know that business keeps you in China or takes you to China quite often nowadays, but we were talking a little earlier about your relationship with basketball, a sport, and alluding to being brought up in LA in the 1980s, and I asked the sort of dumbass Brit question. Okay, so which is your team? And the answer was.
Well, you can't have been a child in Los Angeles in the 80s as I was with Magic Johnson and Showtime and the Lakers and not have been captivated by every bit of it. And so while I root for some 60 NBA clients who play every night, in my heart I'm probably a Laker fan more than any other team by a lot.
Okay. I guess the world of sport in Los Angeles, the Lakers organization, everything has changed phenomenally in the period before you're first falling in love with the game. Let's talk a little bit about the way that the world of sport has changed and the way that sport and entertainment seem to have moved ever closer together. And I guess in many respects, there isn't a better city in the world where that's indicated than LA.
And if you go back to the Lakers, obviously, other than their on-court success, if you asked what the Lakers were most known for, and what Dr. Buss, who was really the founder of the Lakers, at the Los Angeles Lakers, would have told you it was the one place in Los Angeles where you were guaranteed to see a celebrity. Mm-hmm. Truly. There's lots of places where you think you will see a celebrity as a tourist, and you definitely will not see them there, like Hollywood Boulevard. But at a Laker game, it is absolutely, still to this day, and certainly now with LeBron on the team, the place where you see celebrity. And the Lakers have always had that Hollywood magic. It is a unique team, and LA is a unique place that way. Other cities have their celebrities who have become super fans, but nothing like Los Angeles, and obviously having the entertainment industry's epicenter being Los Angeles, and to have teams of the caliber and success with the personalities that they've had on those teams has really made the combination of basketball. And if you think about the evolution of NBA as an entertainment product, a lot of that's about Los Angeles and the Lakers and the storytelling that has come out of that.
Okay. I mean, back in the day, I think it was Variety, which is the sort of entertainment industry in the States, in fact, globally, the sort of trade magazine, the Bible, they coined this word sportainment, which is ugly apart from anything else. But the point that they were trying to make was that was the one that I was trying to make earlier about sport and entertainment coming closer together than ever before. And again, just like your take on the idea that probably basketball, as much as anybody else, has been the leader in that. The fact that we have a great indoor environment, you can play with presentation, etc. What contribution has that made to the way that basketball has developed in the States and elsewhere in the world?
Well, even if you just take a step back, people always talk about sports and entertainment. Well, those are just two pieces of the media business. And I think what now people fully appreciate and accept is that sports is the biggest piece of the media business in the world. And ironically, I think entertainment is trying to look a lot more like sports than sports is like entertainment. Reality television is taking entertainment and trying to make it have many of the qualities of sports. And the experience of sports, the atmosphere of sports, the production of sports, the in-venue environment of sports really sets the standard. And obviously the NBA, it has a product that is accessible. It has athletes that are knowable because of what they play, what shoes they wear, in environments that are controlled and highly produced, and with highly engaging gameplay. And it has elevated the bar for everybody. within the NBA, certain teams, and maybe the teams in LA are at the head of the point of what the experience ought to be. But those have set the bar for people around the world. And I don't know what the stat is in basketball. I'm sure Mark could tell you. But for example, in the NFL, it's 97% of fans will never see a game in person. I'm sure it's in the 90% for the NBA as well, which means that when they do go, the experience has to be extraordinary, and at the same time, the extraordinary on their viewing device has to be world class. And give the NBA credit. They are the league who has embraced social media the most and most aggressively, and it has benefited them. They are leaning into what the future of a broadcast looks like more than any other league, and that will benefit them. If you have the NBA Internet on your phone, the mobile view is better and different on your phone than it is just watching a stream of a traditional broadcast. So basketball is the perfect product for where the world is, and frankly for where the world is going technologically.
Sure. And the stars themselves, the relationship, I guess we talk about change and what's driving it. Clearly digital media, social media played a role in driving that change of relationship. Back in LA, you had a showbiz elite that people were aware of but couldn't get close to in the golden age of Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. Now you can talk to players, basketball players, other players, almost the moment they get out of court and be part of their lives. As somebody who works with talent, how much has that changed your opportunity? And I'm going to follow that up by asking whether, given basketball in the States and elsewhere, the style of it, the attitude of it, that sort of really young, go-for-it kind of profile that the sports had, has it been more impacted, and have the commercial opportunities been impacted more than they have in other sports by social media?
Well, certainly it's impacted the players in the NBA because it has just made them more connected and more available. And I think we're on the precipice of making that transition from it being about reach to about monetization of that reach. Mm-hmm. That's not really happened yet. I mean, it happens in small bits and pieces, but you're on the verge of that happening at scale. And whether that's the shoe companies incentivizing or Nike using as a means to distribute and sell. I mean, those sales still come back through Nike, but no better channel to reach Russell Westbrook fans than actually himself. Sure. Or the league using its players to sell tickets and to distribute highlights, or to, let people know that the last quarter of the game is available for purchase. So you're just on the edge of that, and it's remarkable. And the players are going to benefit, and the league is going to benefit, because the more accessible, the more authentic, the more popular, the more valuable. And it's the more valuable not just to the players, it's the whole ecosystem becomes more valuable. And maybe a decade at this point, as a client of ours posted a video in China on the new platform, and 16 million views. That's remarkable, because it's accessible and reachable and still relevant here, because he comes to China and has made it a part of his sort of summer tradition for decades now.
Yeah. And how transferable is that potential to other markets? I mean, we understand, obviously, we talk about China, we talk about the United States, powerful markets. Given the power of players to connect, and let's talk about some of the smaller countries, but with active and successful basketball leagues, how do let's go back to the very basics, the people in this room who run these leagues, are there things that you feel that they might be missing in terms of the way they leverage that power to help grow, through the power of their players, to grow their own leagues?
Well, look, obviously the NBA in the United States is the most robust, but for NBA players, but there are we represent Go Lin, who's the point guard for the Chinese national team, won the CBA championship this year with his club. He's got his own brand, Jordan shoe, signature shoe, for the first time for any non-American athlete. These athletes are big stars, whether it's in their countries or globally, and whether they're playing professional in Europe or in Russia or in Turkey or anywhere it is, they can be stars and be relevant and therefore be valuable. And so it doesn't have to be about the economic power that exists in the United States or the NBA. Those skills, those relationships with their fans, the authenticity that they carry with their consumers is real and is relevant in any.
While we're on that subject, it's something we touched on, well, more than touched on with Mark in the earlier session. Another one of the great changes that has been running through sport is the idea of globalization. I mean, since those glory days back in the 80s, we've seen the NBA itself playing games, not just exhibitions here in China and elsewhere, but regular season games in London, which is not necessarily the most fertile basketball country on the face of it, at least. We've seen the NFL also extending to Mexico City, to London, to Frankfurt, and other places, looking at least to play meaningful games, most recently being La Liga taking Barcelona. In principle, they're still looking to take them to the United States. So the talk has been about a trajectory towards globalization. So I guess there are a couple of questions here. If that trajectory continues, if that trend continues, where do you think that takes us in terms of the organization of world sport, and more specifically, bringing it back to what time frame do you think we may see CBA teams from outside of the mother country, if you like?
Yeah, obviously, and Mark referenced it, and you can see the effects of the NBA putting a team or two at the time in Canada, and the proliferation of players. End with. I mean, if all its stars really want to play for that team, you know, the Anthony Wiggins of the world, that sort of whole generation post Steve Nash is remarkable. But look, the practical logistics of sports like basketball having operating leagues as part of their core business in Europe, the logistical challenges and a whole slew of other challenges probably make that untenable in the foreseeable future. It would not surprise me if you saw an NBA team in Mexico. That Mexico City is obviously a massive market, a massive basketball market, a big country with a lot of economic opportunity. And I think they're going to continue to take those games, the core games, around the world, because the teams understand the value that there is no better sales tool than its athletes playing its game for people all over the world. That's why there are 2 teams landing in China probably as we speak, playing a couple games here in the middle of their preseason. Those things are important, and that's what connects those fans, and there will be NBA games, both preseason and regular season, all continue to build on a sport that has as good an opportunity to become the global sport, the top of the sort of global sports heap as any other sport. And the NBA does a great job, but the quality of basketball around the world is getting better. And frankly, 3-on-3 basketball is going to benefit a lot from that, because people who love the sport, because of the sport's accessibility, now have a truly viable competitive outlet for themselves.
That's interesting. Let's talk about 3-on-3 just for, and we'll keep coming back to tomorrow. But there's something that suggests I can almost already imagine those palm-fringed backgrounds and 3-on-3 basketball, among other sports, of course. What can that variant of basketball do for your Olympic Games? What can your Olympic Games do for that variant of basketball and the sport as a whole?
Well, look, I'm thrilled. Actually, I'm here in 3-on-3 basketball, and the Youth Olympic Games will be great. I'm excited to see how they are in Tokyo and obviously Paris, but you can imagine in a basketball-crazed city like Los Angeles, with some really historic, exciting, quite beautiful street basketball locations that are quite famous, as a really incredible backdrop for 3-on-3 basketball to really captivate the world. And what we hope the LA Olympics can be, continue to showcase the best athletes in the world. And we think obviously basketball at Staples Center where the Lakers and the Clippers play today, or 3-on-3 basketball in really iconic location with teams from all over the world playing, hopefully can do wonders for those sports, because that's what our goal with the Olympics in Los Angeles is unique combination and effort over the next decade to grow, invest in, and showcase sports of all kinds, but really sports that have the opportunity to break through. And 3-on-3 basketball is the top of that list. You know, my kids, when they're in the backyard, they're playing a version of basketball that looks a lot more like 3-on-3 basketball probably than 5-on-5 full court, you know, this length basketball court, because it's a confined space and they play with their friends and they shoot the ball and, you know, they don't have to clear it outside the three-point line, you know, so it's 3-on-3 basketball, and I think that's a game that resonates around the world. And as I've heard Patrick say many times, you're going to have teams from all over the world compete for medals, and that's ultimately what sports and the Olympics are all about.
And from 3-on-3, because I'm fascinated by this idea. It's you're a guy who has been a keynote, and how that has changed over many years. Are we starting to hit a point now where, in a very serious way, there's going to be talent emerging from 3-on-3 who will be big stars in their own right in the future, who will be marketable and possibly even challenge the established stars of the full size, the NBA? There's an interesting thing there, and I raise the question because it perhaps creates an opportunity, if that is the trend, to see people emerging from countries other than the United States to actually sort of spread the love a little bit in this regard.
So I think the answer is both yes and no. But when it comes to being a star, I think, first of all, the definition of what a star is will change, because today a star in basketball, in professional basketball, you're playing in a professional league at the highest level, highly structured, highly promoted, highly skilled team. To show me who's as likely as an NBA highlight or a college basketball highlight as a highlight on Instagram. There's probably a lot closer to 3-on-3 basketball, and that kid, boy or girl, may never make the NBA. But if 3-on-3 were a viable alternative to showcase their talents, that becomes a big opportunity. So are they going to be commercial stars on the success of the NBA? Not for a long, long time, if ever. That doesn't mean they can't be stars in what kids of this generation, my kids who aren't even born yet, look up to, and how they access their sport. Very different, right? They're accessing their sport on Instagram now or YouTube, not necessarily on CCTV and traditional linear programming. And that creates opportunities for 3-on-3 basketball. That creates opportunities for these kinds of talents to showcase their skills and to garner attention.
Your global perspective across sport and the worlds of entertainment on another one of the themes today from Patrick's opening speech onward has been this challenge for basketball to become the leading sport in the world. Now, in most markets, the competition there, the clear competition outside of the United States itself is soccer. What's your take on that? It's undoubted that there is such significant momentum building up behind the sport, and the World Cup is planned to be and should deliver a sort of watershed moment. But what's your take on that as an ambition? Feasible? So,
look, basketball, if you were betting on a sport in the world today, you would bet on basketball. If you look at the ecosystem of basketball, probably bigger than football, because you have to include the other pieces of the puzzle. You have to include attendance, you have to include economic and salaries for players, you have to include the footwear companies and their businesses built on the back of basketball, way bigger than football. It is number 2 and rising quickly in the United States to the NFL, which is sort of on the opposite flight path. It is obviously has a massive impact basketball does in China. If you were betting, if you looked at the world economic power over the next century, you'd probably look west more than east, which means you'd look from the United States west to Asia, as opposed to the United States east to Europe. Just
Yes.
demographics, geographics, all of take advantage of that. Even something as simple as the time zone, the fact that as you can watch a game, at least it's during the day on your mobile here in China, whereas a Champions League game is, I don't know, midnight, 2 in the morning, whatever it is. We missed them today, most Champions League games here.
You can take it from me, it's 3 o'clock in the morning for...
Exactly.
Yes.
And so you put all those things together, and it's not hard to imagine a world in the next 10 years where basketball is the dominant global sport. And it's exciting for us to be a part of as a company. It's exciting to think about as the world we live in. And China is going to be a big part of that story. Obviously, the World Cup next year, but just the entire trajectory of the sport, so much of it is connected between the United States and China, and that's exciting.
Okay, well, I think, Casey, time is up for this afternoon, but that's a great place to finish on a very upbeat note. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please join me in a warm round of applause for Casey Wasserman? Thanks very much indeed. We may have to wait till later for that, but I wondered about that. Casey, thank you again. And that brings us to the end of day one of the inaugural World Basketball Summit. I hope that you've taken as much as